Hey there YouTube, and welcome to winter. Also welcome to the first ever Skoolie edition episode of Orion Homestead Projects. It's cold today. We've got a lot to cover. We're going to talk about exhaust mods, window deletes, demolition, whatever else we can fit into this zany little adventure we've got going here. So follow along, keep on watching, and let's get started. Let's get into the exhaust mods. I did the exhaust mods for a couple of reasons. Number one, I just wanted to have a different look and do something a little bit unique with it. The other thing is that I figured that a dual exhaust with smaller pipes would be more efficient and help the engine breathe than a single exhaust with a larger pipe, so I did that. And I needed to open up the underbody storage areas, underbody of the bus, so that I could do storage, infrastructure, things like that. So first of all, the first thing I did was take out the old exhaust. There's the muffler right there. It's quite a beast and fairly heavy, but I took that out. Took out all the exhaust pipes that went all the way to the back of the bus. The bus is 29.5 feet long, so it went from, I think the whole total distance of this is somewhere in the neighborhood of about 20 feet. But that end right there was what was connected to the muffler, and then it went back down the center frame structure to there. From that point it curved and went into this, went over the wheel well and crossed over to the outside, and then there was the tailpipe that went out the back of the bus. As you can see, at one point the bus bottomed out on something, because that's out around. That was not done by me, that was on the bus, so that was another reason why I wanted to get rid of it. I was able to repurpose some of the pipe for some of the joints and unions that I did under the bus to get everything connected. So I have a dual exhaust that split right after the turbos, and then on each side, as you can see, I have a stack. We'll get into more detail on those later. At this point, we're going to reconvene underneath the bus where all the magic happens. All right, so the rusty pipe that you see there is the downpipe that comes out of the back of the turbo. Then it goes into the new muffler that I have right here. That is a straight through muffler. For those that know anything about vehicles and stuff, this is the equivalent of a glass pack on a gasoline engine. No real muffling capability to it. It's just a straight through muffler. It does tend to calm it down a little bit. From the muffler, you can see that I went into a splitter. That splitter then feeds the dual exhaust coming out. It transitions. So one of the challenges that I had, because I didn't pay attention, but this pipe right here, the original pipe out of the turbo, is 3.5, and then it transitioned. The muffler was 3.5 on the original one was 3.5 on the front, 4-inch on the back, and then it went 4-inch from there all the way back. I didn't realize that. I thought everything was 4-inch. So trial and error, getting parts and things like that, I finally was able to get everything adapted. So it's 3.5 right there. It goes into a 4-inch adapter to get me into the muffler, because it's 4 inches on both sides. 4-inch output. The total flow splitter that I have right there is also 4-inch on the input and output. I then reduced that down to 3-inch pipe, and then split it off and went to both sides. So the first one that you can see is basically, it does a loop back, and then it comes back up to the front, and then crosses over and goes out over there for the stack on that side. Changing orientation so that you can see it a little better. Then on the bottom side there, you can see that it comes out of the splitter, crosses over, 45s up towards the front, and then curves out and goes up to the stack right there. I do have some struts, clamps, things like that to hold everything in place, utilizing what I have in place. This is not the final strapping and securing mechanism for the exhaust. It works right now. This doesn't move. It is very, very solid. This was very much a challenge to figure out, engineer both sides of the exhaust, from the output of the splitter to the bottom of, well, actually all the way to the top of the stacks, is pretty much the same length. They're not exactly the same, but they're very close. So it was quite a challenge to get this in. I had to use jacks, cargo straps, everything else to hold everything in place so that I could get all of the pieces, parts together, make sure everything fit, get everything dimensioned, get it all cut, get it all put in place, and then make sure that it was secure before I released all my supports on it. And it is solid. It does not move very much. The movement that it does have, I will eventually take out of it by using other support mechanisms to keep everything in place. I also want to make sure that it doesn't hit, rub, or come in contact with any other components on the bus and then wear holes through and things like that. So that's where the magic happens underneath here. It was definitely a challenge, but it was fun. I do like the way that it looks on the outside of the bus, so we'll get out from under here. By the way, it's cold. It is currently 26 degrees out here, and I'm laying under a bus showing you some exhaust, so I'm dedicated. So let's take this outside and show you how I did the actual stack work. So from underneath, this is where the pipe came out, and it comes up. I did a little bit of creative engineering for the supports. This right here is actually the lap joint clamp for the pipes, and what I did was I created these angle pieces right here and used the bolts for the clamps to actually provide a mounting point to hold this in place. As you can see, it is fairly solid. It runs up, and everywhere there was a clamp, I did the supports. The other thing that I did was put the heat shield on that you can see right here, because I wanted to make sure that I didn't get complacent and get third-degree burns because I put my hands on a super hot muffler or a super hot pipe. The only thing that I'm concerned about is where it comes out of the bus and curves up, that area right there, but I'll figure something out on that. But I put the heat shields up, again using the same type of process. All of the bolts that go into the bus are 1/4-inch stainless steel into rib nuts. I made a mistake and drilled a hole too big right there, so I had to fix that, but I'll close that up. And then I've got the clamps here. I'm not completely satisfied with the way they turned out because they're basically hardware angles and brackets and stuff from the store. Kind of soft metal. I'm not sure how they're going to hold up. I may have to come back and figure out a way to make them a little bit more rigid, but I'll figure that out in the future as we start moving this thing down the road. Going up to the top, you can see I've got the stack curved towards the back, and I've also got them turned outwards away from the bus. Why did I do that? Oh, I'm glad you asked, because one of the things that I've seen with a lot of diesel vehicles is when you're going down the road, they put out a lot of exhaust and a lot of smoke. And when this is all said and done, the top of this roof is going to be covered in solar panels. So I wanted to divert the exhaust away from the side of the bus to some degree so that none of that stuff settled back down onto the solar panels and stuff. Plus I still haven't figured it out, but I'll probably put a deck on the back as well, and I don't want all that soot and stuff settling on the deck as well. So that's the exhaust system in a nutshell. If you have any questions, please leave them for me. I'll be more than happy to go into more detail on anything that you want to know about on how I did that. But there's the exhaust. I do have a couple of snips of video on this where what it sounded like when all the exhaust was removed and just coming out of that 3.5-inch pipe out of the turbos, and then what it sounded like after the exhaust was installed and everything was in place and secure. The difference being that the first one was taken on the other side of the bus on the ground, and when the stacks were in place, it was taken from way up there on the deck. So a little bit of a difference there. So that's the exhaust in a nutshell. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, please let me know. I'll be more than happy to get back with you on it. Thank you. So let's talk about the window delete process. That was quite a challenge. So there was a window in between every line of rivets that you see there, between the channels that run through for the frame of the bus all the way up to the front. The way that I did that is I took, like for instance, you can see that, let me move around here so you can actually see. So they're all lapped from the front to the back, so I started at the back and worked forward. Each one of these was measured and then set to dimension, and I ordered all the metal for it. It's all 16 gauge galvanneal, so it's not supposed to rust. We'll see how that works. But the way that I did this, like for instance, when I put this particular panel in, I removed this window and this window. I used screws like this to help me hold it up in place. I matched the edge. You might be able to see it right there. So that front edge of this panel is lined up and square with the hat channel that runs inside of there, and I clamped it down. I also came in from the inside in some of the places where there were holes and stuff. I drilled a pilot hole and then put a screw through from the inside to hold it in place. And then at that point, I drilled a gazillion holes to get through the galvanneal. Up there at the top, one of the things that I did was I had to take every single one of those rivets out. You can see the bolts that are there. The challenge I had was the rivets didn't have enough of a bite depth, so I had to use 1/4 inch bolts there. I fixed that on the other side. I didn't use the bolts on the other side, but on this side I had to use 1 1/4 inch stainless steel bolts with nylon lock nuts on the inside to hold those in place and pull it down. Worked really well. And then I sealed everything, and I put sealant over the top of the roof. But the way that this worked is I would take out these two windows, put this one up, clamp it in place, get it all drilled and make sure that everything was lined up, and then I would take it down, and then I went over to the next one and did the same thing. So this window would already be removed. I removed this window, and then I removed this window. This window gave me the ability to clamp to this channel rack to hold it in place. The other thing you can see is I have these screws here, because I did most of this by myself. I used these screws to give me a resting place for the sheet metal when I put it up there. Pushed it up into place up there at the top underneath the roof line, because all the rivets and everything was removed and it was pressed out. So I clamped it in place, got everything lined up, and again, using the channel rail, drilling pilot holes, and then putting screws from the inside to help hold it in place, so that when I drilled from the inside, it wouldn't be pushing out and would be holding force against the drill action. This rivet line right here at the bottom was all drilled prior to the panels going up. The way that this is set up is the rub rail, this rivet line right here is for the bottom of the rub rail, and this set of rivets is actually designed and set up so that it falls right underneath this part of the rub rail, so it won't interfere when I go to put it back up. So when I go to put it back up, I have a lot of holes to drill still, but I'll get that all sorted out when I'm ready to actually do that. But anyway, the process on both sides was the same. I got rid of all the rivets, and as I was doing the rivets on the top as well, I didn't go through and do the whole side. I would just do the sections that I was working with. For instance, doing this particular piece right here, those back there about halfway up, that was already undone, so I came all the way across, and then about halfway over this panel, so that it freed everything up so I could get the sheet metal in place and get it all locked down. Once I had this piece set up and ready to rock and roll, I went back and put that piece, this first one, in, got it all riveted in place except for this channel rail where this piece would overlap, and then got this all drilled, ready to rivet. Moved on to the, took it down, moved on to the next one, so I was able to clamp on this side, clamp on this side, hold it in place, get everything drilled out, and then once this one was drilled out and I was ready to get it up, I would pull it down, go back, do that one, get it sealed, get it riveted in place, get it bolted in place, and get everything locked down. Again, excluding this one because this panel had to lap over it, and then that would rivet when I got this one put in. And then I got a small one here, the same process. This area right here, so there's my tankless hot water heater. I've got that installed, it's propane. This right here was a side door. I really wanted to use that door, but I couldn't because it had a safety latch at the top that had failed, and the people that had it before me, they actually wound up trying to force the door and bent the door, and I could not get it unbent, so I had to just delete the door and close it in. So this right here is actually the bottom half of the door. I cut it off right here, removed the glass and window, bolted everything, did some patchwork with sheet metal. When this is all cleaned and painted, it'll probably look a lot better than it does right now, but that was the way that I deleted it. There was a hinge up here as well. I deleted that hinge out of the frame of the bus. I left that one in place because that was the primary means that I had to make sure that this door was lined up when I put it back in place. So the door is actually holding my tankless hot water heater, and on the inside, the other side of this door is actually going to be where the kitchen is. The propane is actually in this tank, in this storage box underneath. I've got two 30-gallon propane tanks that I've put in here. And while we're on it, I can go into the whole underbody storage. So there's my tanks. I've got an automatic valve that switches when the tanks are empty, and then I can just pull them out. As you can see, I've got some bolts down there. I just undo those, pull the tank out, go fill it up, put it back in, and everything's ready to rock and roll. This little fitting right here is where the output of the propane is. It's going to run up through the floor inside and then provide propane for the hot water heater, and then right above the hot water heater is going to be the stove and oven that I have that's going to go in there. So all of the propane activity is going to be confined to this one spot. This is the only place that there'll be any propane. I'll talk about getting this underbody storage thing in place in a little bit, but anyway, so I came all the way up to the front, doing the process the same way each and every time. I'll throw in some pictures along the way as I'm talking about this when I edit the video, so you can see how that process rolls. But this was originally, you can see that it folds back over this window. It folded back over this one as well, but I cut that out so that it was flat. I'll probably be figuring out a way to dress that up a little better in the future. One of the other things that I'll do, walk you around the front of the bus real quick and show you, is this particular rub rail that you see laying on the ground is the one that came off of this side. It went all the way from the back and then the entire length of the bus and came all the way up here to the door. So because I did that door delete, I plan on taking this particular rub rail, moving it to the other side, so I have a continuous span of rub rail going all the way up to the front and under the driver's window. I'll have to probably put a piece in from the driver's window back to marry them up. And then the other thing that I have to do, because of this rust and stuff, because of the way the paint job was done, I'm taking this rubber rail down and we'll probably move this one up to here and allow this one to be a rubber rail across the bottom of the windows, and then this one will be removed completely. This is actually molded. These three right here are molded into the panel of the bus, so I'm not going to do anything with those, and I'm not going to do anything to this one. I am taking these off. You can see that they're raised up because I've got to do something to fix all of this. You can see right here, they didn't do a very good paint job, and so it's got a lot of rust, and I'm gonna have to take care of that. But that comes when I do the painting. But this side, the window deletes was exactly the same. Because I had the experience with the other side, this side was a lot quicker and a lot easier to do because I knew what the process was and how I was going to do it. So, but again, same thing. A couple of windows, clamp them in place, drill them out. A couple of windows, clamp them in place, drill them out. And again, making sure for water flow, everything laps starting at the back going forward so that all of the panels lap over the one behind, so that as water is running down the side of the bus, it flows over the top of the panels rather than into laps that will cause it to leak. Everything is very, very heavily sealed. I used, I can't remember the name of it, but some sealing. It is up at the top there. I've got a bunch of it up there. At some points it made it very difficult to get the panels in because I put so much up there. And then down the rails on the hat channel, I sealed those so that every place where there was a rivet, the rivet had to go through that sealant to make sure that no water got inside. I've checked this with some rain and when I washed the roof and stuff, and I don't have any water getting in anywhere right now other than at the door, because I had to disconnect the door to get the panels up here in the front in the right place and behind the door frame. I'm probably going to do something with that to do something different for the door. I kind of like the school bus door, but I don't know that it's going to work very well, so we'll figure that out in the future. Well, there's the window deletes in a nutshell. Again, if there's any questions, comments, things that you want to know more about on how I did that, let me know. I've seen a lot of different ways of doing this on YouTube with the panels that go right inside the school bus holes. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to make sure that I had a solid, clean finish, and I didn't want to provide any places where there could be any chance of water getting in. Everything is lapped the way that it should be, so that there's no chance for water to get in. But there's the window delete process and putting up the sheet metal. I got all the sheet metal. It's all 16 gauge galvanneal. I got it from Online Metals. Asked them for a quote. They gave me a quote. I ordered it because it was reasonable. Within a week it was here, and then I've been working on it ever since. But I'm not sponsored by them. And I'm just telling you where I got the metal from. It was a painless experience. It shipped and got it all in place. I sorted it all out and went to work. And there's my window deletes in a nutshell. Thank you. So let's talk about the process of installing this underbody storage. So when I did this bus was not in the position that it's in now. It was not level to the degree that it is now. It was actually over there at an incline like this. First thing I did was measure out the box, and what I wanted to do was make sure, so this is the original skin of the bus, and this is the opening for where the door is right there. You can see, and I've got everything sealed in there. The actual frame, as you can see, of the box goes in there. So the way that this is set up is these rivets that run up this way and across here, those are all riveted into the actual box itself on the front frame of the bus on the sheet metal. And then on the inside, the other thing that I did was I married up, it's kind of hard to see, but you can see one right there, and there's another one in the back. So I identified where the rails were that were in the floor, marked those out, drilled the holes, and then I have the entire top of the box riveted up to the rails of the floor itself as well. I did the upward rivets first to pull it up tight, and then I did these. as I did it, the whole thing was jacked up and supported, so it was already tight in place, but I wanted to make sure that when I did it, I didn't create a situation where it wasn't tight and secure. The sheet metal out here had a little bit more flexibility, so I could get away with doing this one last anyway. But it was quite a challenge to make sure that it didn't leak or anything. As you can see, I put this sealant and closed off this entire area all the way around so that there was no chance that any water could get in, under, or through into the box. The other thing that I had to do, the metal under here, you can see it curves back right here, so I had to cut that out. So here's the original sheet metal right here. I had to cut that part out so that it would go in there like that. I also had to cut the rub rail here, and these little white caps that you see are actually the closing ends of these right here, and I got those from removing this piece across the door, because as you can see, these holes, it was screwed into the door across here. So I was able to repurpose those that I pulled out of here and put them in on each end and seal them in place too. Here's the original end of the rub rail from where I cut it out to get the box in, and I cut it back far enough to allow me the ability to get those in and stuff. Putting in the propane tanks, relatively simple. I used those insulation blocks just to avoid metal on metal and absorb some of the shock of going down the road on those tanks and stuff. Just for a little added bit of insurance, I actually added that support underneath it. It's just 1/4 inch going up into the frame, into the solid part of the steel frame. You can see it's pretty thick up there. There you go. You can see it's pretty thick up there. So I put that in there just for a little bit of insurance to keep everything tight. But that was the process. It was quite challenging because it was on an incline, and I had to jack it up and put it up and hold it up, and a little bit at a time. Of course, nothing ever fit the first time, so I had to put it up, drop it down, put it up, drop it down, trim, and I finally got it in place, and I was really happy with it. So I still need to adjust some of the latches because they're not completely lined up yet, but it works. I do have another one to put in. That one's probably going to go on the other side. I don't know that I'm going to put it right behind the wheel. I think that what I want to do is use the area behind the wheels for my gray water tanks, and we'll probably get to that at some point in the future as well. Real quick, one of the things I want to show you from a demolition perspective, I have everything saved, and that right there is the pile of everything that I pulled off or out of this bus. Everything, it's all stacked up right there. That's quite a heavy pile of metal that's sitting there. This is all the roof panels, sidewall panels, mirrors, everything that came out of that bus is all stacked up right there. All of the seats are right there, which was a challenge in and of itself, and I've got some over there as well. I got to get rid of all the seats. Getting rid of the seats was kind of fun. Again, doing that by myself. What I did was I got about 6 pair of vice grips and an impact wrench, and I went under the bus and used the vice grips to hold the nuts, and then went inside and either use a ratchet or an impact wrench and pulled all the seats out, 1 or 2 at a time, until I got from the back all the way to the front. I got a little go back in time moment when I was pulling the seats out. When I first got the bus, we had a torrential storm come through here, and I was really happy because I hadn't seen any water and stuff, so I was really happy that I didn't have to worry about any of the bus leaking or anything like that. Well, when I got the seats out and then started pulling up all the flooring that was glued to the metal, there was no plywood in the floor or anything. It was just basically a metal floor with rubber matting glued to the top of it and seats on top of that. Well, underneath that matting there was water everywhere. I started working on looking at the windows to see where they were leaking, and one of the things that I found as I was taking the roof sheet metal out and stuff like that, that the vibration from that was causing the windows to just drop. They were all messed up. So at that point I decided I was getting rid of every single window and did the sheet metal. And at this point I'm going to go back in once I get the interior design laid out, and I'll put RV windows in the side of it in key strategic locations. It's not going to be looking like an armored prison bus. When it goes down the road, it'll have windows in it. I just don't know where I'm going to put them yet. But that covers pretty much what we did for the underbody storage, how I did the window deletes, the exhaust mods, and the pile of demolition stuff. I've got some pictures and some time way back videos of things that I've done that I'll be adding to this so that you can see that. But that pretty much covers everything else on what I've done so far. The entire inside is stripped out completely, and we'll probably get to a little bit of that as we close out this video, and then into the next ones we'll start doing some more work on that. The next thing I want to show you real quick as we close this up is the in the previous video I had showed this, but basically this is a something that I added to the outside of the window. I had this idea. I really like it, and what I did was I put red lights behind the pupils, and then I've got blue LED lights in the irises of the eyes here. The blue, when the lights are on, they're illuminated, and the red ones are tied into the brake light circuit so that when I hit the brakes, the pupils light up red. I wanted to show you how I did that. It was quite fun for sure. So here is the setup right here. So this is the pupil lights, and then these are the blue ones. I basically got some acrylic glue and put the glue on the face of the LED bulb and put it in place. It didn't set fast enough, so what I had to do is I got this one in place and just held it until it set, and then used electrical tape and held these in place around until everything's set up. I also put window tinting on the inside of the window, and I did that to basically mute out the brightness of the lights, because I didn't want it to be completely in your face kind of thing when they were on. So I used the window tinting to darken it up a little bit so it wasn't so pronounced. But that's how I did the lights in the eyes of the wolf on the back of the bus. Got them all tied in. I was really happy with the way that came out. As you can see, I didn't pull the electrical tape off of here yet. For some reason I haven't done that, but there's how I held everything in place right there while that glue set up and kept everything together. And there's the inside. Currently working on the floor. Got the foam insulation down. Got a whole stack of it there. I'm going to continue carrying that forward. That blue thing right there that you see is where the shower is going to be, and that's my shower pan. I got my water tank, which are going to go in over the wheel well. That's probably one of the next things I'll be doing, is framing out over the wheel well so I can get the water tanks in place. And we'll be getting floor down. I've got to have this all ready because the glue that I'm using to glue this stuff down, it has to be at least 40 degrees, and I'm not going to see 40 degrees until Tuesday. So I've got till Tuesday to get everything cut and in place and ready to go, and then I can start gluing it all down and carry the floor all the way forward and get ready to rock and roll in there. Well, I hope you enjoyed. Any questions, comments, anything like that, let me know. I appreciate you sticking with me this far. Thank you very much. Well, I think that's a wrap for this video. I think we're going to close it out here and move on to other things. Already working on other videos for the next episode. We'll probably be focusing on getting that floor installed. Also looking at getting those wheel wells closed in. I'm going to be putting my water tanks on top of there, so we'll be able to talk about that. That closes out this one, but don't you worry, there's plenty more to come and a lot more to do. So we'll be back soon. Thank you for being here and sticking with me through the end. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.